Okay, raise your hand if you've ever been in one of my classes. All right, can someone name to me the first covenant in the hourglass of covenants? What's in it? Noah and the flood. Gold star yet again. I'm going to run out of gold stars for Cindy when it comes to Scripture. Yeah, so let me just explain to you, if you haven't been in one of my classes, to know what I'm talking about. So the basis of the Old Testament is, rather than salvation, it's covenantal relationship with God. And so the idea is, well, what are all the covenants that are in the Scriptures? Because there's more than just the Old Covenant and the New Covenant, contrary to popular Christian belief. Noah is a universal covenant with all of humanity and apparently all the beasts and birds and the earth. It's like in Robin Hood Men in Tights. But wait, there's trees, there's birds, there's squirrels, we'll bless them all. It's that kind of covenant. It's not just us, it's everything. And the covenant is in exchange for not eating animals with blood in it and living by a basic ethical code, God will never destroy the earth again, and the rainbow will be a sign to prove that. Who saw that immense, complete rainbow with a slight double last Thursday? It is breathtaking. If you didn't get a chance to see it, just go to my Facebook profile and see my cover photo. I probably was being less than ideal as a driver because I kept having snapshots every time we had to stop. It was amazing. But the sign of God's covenant with us, with all of us, not just this country, not just Jews, not just anything, everyone and everything, is reminded to us every time we see that rainbow. Now you get further in, you get to Abraham, which we'll be coming to next week, which is the next part of that hourglass. Then you get to Moses, which is further narrow in. Then you get to David, and then it opens back out with Jesus, which is more Paul's thinking. But we're going to come back to that because if I go any further into this explanation, I will lose you all. Because it gets really, really nitty-gritty details. Anyway, okay, Moses. So, again, contrary to the Babylonian gods destroying humanity in a flood because they stunk and were noisy and annoying, the God of Israel decided to do a reboot of humanity because of the amount of evil, and the word that is translated from Hebrew to evil is also translated as violence. So think about that, particularly with a lot of what's going on in the world today. God is like, hey, I'm not a big fan of this violence, so let's start fresh. Not necessarily the way I would have wanted to reboot, but that is not for me, and it's a way of making sense of the flood. Okay, moving forward, you get to 1 Peter. Now, 1 Peter has this interesting sort of apocalyptic understanding of the story of Noah because of the book of Enoch. If you haven't read it, it's wild, it's weird. You thought Revelation was weird? Read Enoch. But if you don't have Enoch, you don't have Revelation. Anyway, but he sees the flood and moving forward as a prefiguring of baptism. Now, raise your hand if that makes any sense. Kind of, sort of. How so?
Water.
Mm-hmm.
It kind of wiped out the earth, and then we had a new beginning, and I see baptism as sort of that too.
Yes. You understand the basic premise of baptism as a symbole to throw two things together, where when you are dunked into the water, brought back up, you are dying to this life, to be washed clean, to be buried, and then resurrected into new life. Or, you're dirty, you get dumped, you get washed off, you come back to be clean, and also walking from the wilderness into the land of promise. So, if God is baptizing the earth, as it were, to start fresh, that is what Peter is talking about in this passage. And I found that kind of interesting when I realized what was going on. And that not only was that the case, but Jesus, just as Noah and the people, Noah survived while the other people died, Jesus goes to the people who are in prison in the underworld to liberate them from even that far back. Powerful, powerful story. So why is baptism so important? And that's what today is going to hinge on. So today's story, first off, you have Jesus going to be baptized by John at the Jordan River. Now, does Jesus do baptism for us or with us? With us. Now, hang on a minute. Didn't Jesus do everything for us? Why would Jesus have to be baptized if baptism is talking about repentance into righteousness, walking from the wilderness into the land of promise? He does the opposite. He gets baptized and then goes out in the wilderness. We are in this together. We are in the baptismal covenant. Now later on, normally I would have us do the Nicene Creed before doing faithful prayer book liturgy, but because of today's sermon, we're going to do the baptismal covenant, but we'll come back to that. Okay, tell me what makes a person a full member of the church? Baptism. Excellent. Gold stars everywhere today. You guys, you're on it. So if baptism is the basis for full membership, we are all equally full members with Jesus. But what happens to Jesus upon his baptism? Does he go out and start teaching? Does he go enjoy a comfortable place to find easy community? No, where does he go?
The wilderness.
Wilderness. And is he with anyone?
Nope.
No. Satan.
Yeah.
And the angels maybe, but still. Is that comfortable? Do you want to fast for 40 days, constantly being tempted by the devil? Do you think you would have a very, very successful time of it? No. Do you think you might want to punch the devil in the face a couple times for being really annoying? I don't condone violence, but that impulse would be there for me. So, if right at that moment where Jesus becomes a fully baptized, and therefore models for us what full membership means, his first thing to do is he has to go work through some things, be transformed, be challenged, be stretched, be thrown out in the wilderness, and have to make the best of it. Have to work hard on overcoming things that he does not want to have to deal with. Does that feel awfully close to home sometimes? The way that the church is these days and the challenges that we face? But again, he goes through the temptations. Now, I prefer the Luke's gospel version of this, where he goes through the 3 temptations and overcomes them and explains how. But that being said, once he overcomes these temptations by trusting in God and the word of God, he then goes and picks up whose mantle? Who was baptizing before him? John the Baptist, who was arrested. Also, yeah, who was also arrested. Yeah. And beheaded. God, why do you have to give us callings that are so hard? Seriously? Like, why is our story so difficult? And why are so many of our main focal point leaders ending up in difficult situations? Well, they're trying to live for love, for justice, for peace, to change the world based on the laws of love and justice. Not on the laws of power and might. Power and might, like any bully, sees any sort of standing up to that bully as a threat and will smack it down at every possible option. But what's fun is when the bully ends up either getting their comeuppance, or better yet, being transformed by the love of the bullied. Well said, Sophia. But more importantly, it's less about those things. It's less about bullying tactics. It's less about, who wins, who doesn't. But what is it that we as baptized members of this congregation are called to do? Who here is baptized? Okay. Who here thinks that they don't have to contribute anything to the welfare of the church? Okay. Good. You're with me on that. So that's where a lot of challenges are going to be coming forward as we move through this time together. Lent is going to be a difficult fasting and transformational journey. So what I'm going to do is I want to bring up Anne in just a minute. So Anne, can you come sit here on the front seat? Actually, let's get all the vestry that are here. Come on up. Y'all know we're facing a really, really difficult time in coming to terms with our budget. It's going to be pretty much wiped out at the end of the year. These 3 and one more person who isn't here today, people who are our vestry, have decided, you know what? Let's go all out. Let's see what we can do to make this work. Now, what that means is this church is going to be significantly transformed in its understanding of itself, because it will require a flexibility and involvement of you, the laity, that has never been demanded before. Because unfortunately, full-time clergy will not be a viability for a long time. Now, tell me something. Can 4 people sustain this entire church? No. Can 3 people sustain this entire church? Can a priest sustain this entire church? No. Let's say that again loudly and fully. Can a priest and or the vestry run the entire church?
No.
One more time?
No.
Let's give it the what's his name? Roy Kent version? No! If you haven't seen Ted Lasso, it's from that. He's a really funny character. Okay. So there's a program that the diocese has put together called Vital and Thriving. And it echoes a lot of what we've been doing the last 3 years in our stewardship campaign. So 3 years ago, the question was discipleship. What does it mean to be a disciple? Where is your lived experience of God? How do you find that in St. Anne's? And what would happen if St. Anne's went away? Those are the first questions we asked. And I remember people telling me 3 years ago, I'm not ready to deal with that question, what if St. Anne's went away? I'm like, that's why we're doing it now, so that hopefully we don't have to face that. Unfortunately, we are still facing that. Second year, what is your calling? And taking Howard Thurman's definition of calling, what makes you come alive? Go do that. Because what the world needs is people who are fully alive. Find that thing that makes you want to do it. You're willing to prioritize this. What is your calling as an individual? What is St. Anne's calling as a congregation? And what would happen to Fremont if St. Anne's went away? Not only what would we do if St. Anne's went away, what would the community do? What would happen? Would it miss us? Would it know we were gone? Would it lose out on what we have to offer? This past year, even though it wasn't the best timing because of the bishop search and the women's retreat, which I'm so glad happened, we only really had 2 weeks to explore conversations together as a full congregation. It's like, how do we put these things into practice? And what do we do to ensure that St. Anne's doesn't go away? Okay, I know it's a lot of information here, but all of these things, all of it, is tied into your baptism, because that is where we are united on an equal footing in terms of our respective callings together as a community. You too. I need you to settle down a little bit. So I want to read to you a description real quick of Vital and Thriving, and then I want the vestry to come up and tell you what they need from you. Because what I need from you all is a pledge to support your vestry, just as you supported me all this time and still support me in the work that I'm trying to do. But we have to band together, all hands on deck. All hands on deck. I want to say it one more time. All hands on deck. This is not a drill. So let me read to you about this program real quick. All right. So how do congregations adapt and flourish in trying times? How do we unlock our capacity to build beloved community? How do we discern God's promised and intended future? Vital and Thriving is designed to help you explore these questions with your congregation. Vital and Thriving is a ministry learning hub developed for the congregations of the Episcopal Diocese of California through a special partnership with the Center for Church Innovation. We've created a space where your congregation can join with others for support, to learn missional practices, and enter a process of collective discernment as we emerge from the pandemic. We're committed to walking with you as you seek to discover your next steps. This will be a space for support, mutual learning, as well as a pathway for seed funding as you discern your congregation's unique missional challenge. All right, keep the faith.
Keep the faith.
Keep coming to church.
Keep coming to church.
Keep fulfilling your pledge.
Keep fulfilling your pledge.
Keep talking to God about our future.
Keep talking to God about our future. Never.
Thank you very much. All right. Thank you all very much for allowing me to kind of interpose a few things into the sermon time and to put to you a very hard challenge. But again, I'm excited to see that people are stepping up where they need to. Keep doing it. Anytime you think we're done, we're not. And one of the key things to remember is that we have a triage list. It's like in medicine, you have a triage list that says what's absolutely most important versus what's not as important. You know, the only way this church will work is if St. Anne's is at the top of your triage list. maybe the second or third, but it's up there, where when you have to decide what you have to sacrifice, it cannot be this congregation. Your baptism is a thing that ties you throughout all of eternity to the entirety of God's beloved family. Prioritize that family and prioritize the calling that God is giving us as we walk through this journey of Lent together, so that you can continue to do the work that you have been called to do. And thank you for stepping into that. Amen, and I don't care if it's Lent, hallelujah.